Hey guys, today is your last day of lessons. Woo, woo, woo. We're actually going to do two lessons today, 119 and 120, and they're dividing by a decimal number and multiplying mixed numbers. So two different things. Hopefully you're going to have enough time to practice, and we should be okay. Tomorrow you're going to have a test. Thursday you're going to have the end of course test. Okay? Don't stress. I don't think either of these are on the test. I'm not positive, but I don't think they are. And of course, we will learn them again next year. So we'll get some practice today. Do your very best, please. And let's get this going. I think they're pretty easy, but again, we will see them again next year. So lesson 119, dividing by a decimal number. The other day, we were dividing decimals by whole numbers. Okay, we did this the other day. Today we're doing this. Now there's an important difference here. Here we're dividing decimal by whole number. Here we're dividing a decimal by a decimal. So the question becomes, what do I do with my decimal? So to review really quickly, here we ask ourselves, okay, where does the decimal go? And you should know that it goes straight up. You guys were really good at that the other day. So if the decimal goes straight up, we then can ask ourselves, how many times does 3 go into 12? And of course the answer is 4. But are we done yet? Sorry, I can't see. Are we done yet? No, because what goes above that 1? There's a space there. It's a 0, and it's a has to be there 0. We have to have it, okay? So it looks like this. 12 hundredths divided by 3 is 4 hundredths. That's our final answer. Well, today we're going to be looking at this. We're going to be looking at 12 hundredths divided by 3 tenths. And our question is, where do we put our decimal? Okay, so we can't just put it straight up because there's a decimal over here. We don't just count decimal places like we do with multiplication because it doesn't work the same way. The trick is we always want this number out here, the divisor, to be a whole number. So I could maybe ask, but I don't know who's going to raise your hands. What would we multiply 3 tenths by to get a whole number of 3? And maybe some of you have seen this down here. If I multiply it by 10, 10 times 0.3 would be 3.0, or just 3. Well, if I'm going to do that, then I would also need to multiply 12 hundredths by 10, and I would get 1.2. We'll learn this more next year and go in more in depth, but the idea is if I'm going to multiply this by 10, then I'm going to multiply this by 10. It's actually like an equivalent fraction. If I have 3 tenths over 12 hundredths, and I multiply them both by that special form of 1 called 10 over 10, it's equal to the answer of 3 over 1.2. So I know that looks a little goofy, but here's the trick. We are going to take the first decimal in the divisor and we're going to move it as far over as we can. Then we're going to move over the decimal in the dividend as far over, as many places over as we went there, and then our decimal now goes up. So let me show you what I mean. Back to this where there was no writing. I'm going to move this decimal over. How many places can it go? Only 1. So I'm going to move that 1 place over. And now here's my decimal right there. So I'm actually going to cross out the old one. Okay? Now I've moved it 1 place over, which means I'm also going to move this decimal 1 place over. So now it's between the 1 and the 2. Okay? So I've moved that over, and now from its new place between the 1 and the 2, I'm going to put it straight up. Okay, So now, this looks a little sloppy. I'm going to rewrite it. Now I have 3 on the outside in the dividend place, and 1.2, sorry, in the divisor place, and 1.2 in the dividend place. So I have now 1.2 divided by 3. Now I have a decimal divided by a whole number, just like I did the other day when we were practicing. I had a decimal divided by a whole number. So now that we have this whole number out here, you guys were really good at this the other day. We know this decimal in our answer is going to go straight up. And we're still going to pretend this is 12. How many times does 3 go into 12? 4. So that 4 is going to go straight above the 2. And there we have our answer, 4/10. Now, if we put it back into the original problem, we would have 3/10 times 4/10. And we know that 3 times 4 is 12. And I have 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places, 1 decimal place, 2 decimal places. So my answer is going to have 1, 2 decimal places. And I have my original dividend, which was 0.12 or 12/100. So I know that this checks out. 3/10 times 4/10 equals 12/100. Okay, we're going to try another one. Again, the trick is over, over, up. Okay, so let's try this one. We're going to do 2 34/100 divided by 6/10. See if you can see that. You might want to write this down. Okay, our trick is over, over, up. We're going to start in the divisor. We're going to move this as far over as we can, which is only one place. Okay, so we're going to move that over one place. And now I see that there's 2 places here, but since I only moved this one place over, I'm only going to move this decimal one place over. Sorry, I have papers flying everywhere here. Okay, so I've moved this over. I've now moved this over. This is where my decimal is now. So my decimal and my answer is going to go straight up. Okay, so I've gone over, over, up. Okay, now you can ask yourself, how many times does 6 go into 2? It doesn't. You don't have to put anything there because it's to the left of the decimal, so we don't have to have zeros here. You can ask yourself, how many times does 6 go into 23? And that would be 3 times. 6 times 3 is 18. 23 minus 18 is 5. Just trying to get ahead here a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to ask ourselves, how many times does 6 go into 54? And notice again, I do not carry down this decimal. We don't do that. How many times does 6 go into 54? That's 9 times. And I know that 9 times 6 is 54. So I've now finished the problem. Okay, so the original problem, 2 34/100 divided by 0.6 became 23.4 divided by the whole number 6, and my answer is 3 9/10, 3.9. Okay, I'm gonna give you some time to practice some more of those, and maybe Mrs. Parra can show you this trick again or help you on the board.